Hi everybody, Ethan Dalber here, Cross Country Mortgage in Hershey, Pennsylvania with the Christopher Blount Group along with Noah.
What's up guys, Noah Sanders, Cross Country Mortgage.
All right, we are here with Zach Williamson today.
What's going on, guys?
From Keller Williams. He serves the greater Harrisburg area as well as central PA in general. So he's here to kind of give some tips and tricks to you guys on how to win a deal, what's going to help you win a deal. We can tell you, Noah and I can tell you as much as we want to tell you on how to win a deal, but Zach's got boots on the ground. He's writing up offers, so his perspective is very key.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing when it comes to winning a deal right now is you got to find out why the sellers are selling in the first place. Like what is their motivation to sell this house? Is it a particular settlement date? Sometimes that comes in as a very critical thing. Maybe they're just in it for the money. Maybe it doesn't matter when they settle on the deal. So there's a lot of reasons why the seller's selling their property, but a good realtor is going to figure that out before you write your offer. So one of my key strategies I always do is I am knocking on their door. I'm calling them 2-3 times before we even write the offer, just so I get an idea of what their motivation is, because you're not going to win the deal, going in blind, writing what you think is the best offer, but maybe what could have really changed it for you is writing an extra 10 days on that settlement. Maybe that could have been what changed it. But the second really critical thing about writing an offer is finding out how far you're willing to go, because that's going to be something that's really, really important. I have some clients right now that they're not willing to write inspections off of their offer. They're like, no matter what, I'm getting a home inspection. I don't care if it's, absolutely crazy out there. I would rather miss out on the house than get a house and not have it inspected. And maybe that's true for you, or maybe you're like, you know what? I love this house. I know it's new enough. I don't need the inspections. And so maybe you're one of those people that's like, you know what? We can go to the house that just got listed today because you know that you're willing to go that far for the right property. So as far as actually writing the offer is concerned, what you have to know is that everything really is just a sliding scale. There's things you can add or subtract from your offer that's going to make it a lot more interesting to a seller. So you can kind of think of it like a points total, and you can take away or add points, at any point in your offer that will make it more appealing to a seller. And ultimately, this is kind of why it's important to know how far you're willing to go, is because you have to know how much you really want to add before you're putting yourself out, and before you're not going to be happy with this deal no matter how great the house really is. So assuming you want this house very, very badly, here's what we're going to do, okay? Number one, you have to have an escalation clause on your offer. We're assuming that this is going to be your dream house and that you really, really love this property, okay? So if you're going to write an offer today, let's say we know that it's going to be competitive, and let's say it's a $300,000 property, you might want to add an escalation clause for that up to $330,000 or $350,000. And the way that I always judge it, and you're like, well, how do you really know where to end the escalation? Are you going to be upset if I call you and say we lost it by $5,000? Is that going to be something that you're going to want to live with, or is that something that's going to make you really upset and make you unhappy with the offer that you made? I would say where that tap out point is, where you're like, oh, I don't even want it at 370 because that's so insane. If that's where you're at, I would say cut it at 360, cut it at 350, but you want to have an escalation clause. And an escalation clause, if you don't know what that is basically, we're going to offer over the next competing offer by $1,000 or by $5,000 or whatever you decide. So say for instance, if it's a 300,000 property, someone offers 320, we say we're going to beat it by 1,000, we'll offer 321. So this is kind of how an escalation clause typically works. So another really important thing when it comes to writing an offer is the loan type that you're getting that's associated with that offer. So sometimes sellers are not going to want to accept an offer if I'm imagining all terms are the same, but one is a FHA offer and one is a conventional offer. They're going to take the conventional offer. And that's because there's a lot of headaches typically associated with these other types of loans. And maybe you guys want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with some of these government loans or different loan types, there's going to be extra boxes we have to check off. So things such as those inspections that we talked about, maybe that's a pest inspection or something of that nature that we require. Things of the safety realm as well. We need to make sure staircases, handrails, all that stuff's intact and working for you guys in your house. And then also just the overall appearance and shape of the house. So it has to be something that's not have chipped and peeling paint, doors, windows, anything like that that's falling off or just is in disrepair. So that's going to be something that the seller may not want to have to take care of.
Right, and you can see how this adds a lot of extra steps and a lot of extra variables for a seller. So this is why they're not looking for those types of offers typically. Now that doesn't mean you can't get one, and that doesn't mean if an FHA is the only thing that you can be qualified for, that doesn't mean that can't happen. It just means that we might not be in those ultra competitive scenarios, but maybe we can find something with the longer days on market or something like that that's still sitting, that's perfectly fine, but maybe would accept an FHA offer. All right, the next thing is going to be your deposit amount, your earnest money. If you don't know what that is, basically for every escrow account that's open, for every offer that happens, you're going to need to put some kind of deposit amount down. And typically people say about 1% is kind of the typical going rate. So if it's a $300,000 property, you might want to do $3,000. I'd suggest maybe more like $5,000, but this is kind of all in the air. But what this does for a seller and why they're interested in it is that this puts some of your skin in the game. So for instance, if you put $10,000 in, they're going to know that you don't want to back out of this contract, because the only way that you lose your earnest money is if you back out on something the deal is not contingent on. So this puts your skin in the game. This shows them that, hey, this person's serious. This person knows that they really, really love this property. And so putting a high deposit amount into your offer is a really good idea, especially because it comes out of your closing costs anyway. So this is not an extra cost to you. This is something that comes out of your closing costs. So if you put $10,000 in, $10,000 comes off your closing costs. And so it's a really good idea, assuming that you're not going to back out of the deal. So another really important part of your offer is your inspections and what inspections you're making the deal contingent on. And basically why this is so important is sellers don't want to deal with inspections. They don't want you inspecting their house and then calling out, every light bulb you don't like and every carpet that you want replaced. They're not interested in all that. And if there's 10 offers on the table, there's probably one that doesn't have inspections. And so that's why you're going to end up losing if you add inspections to your deal. So I would say if you're really serious about getting the property in this market right now, it's going to be hard for you to get an ultra competitive home and have inspections in your contract. Another one I'm not going to touch on super long is transfer tax, and you can offer, so in Pennsylvania, each side of the deal needs to pay transfer tax, and it's 1% of the contract. So if it's a $300,000 house, $3,000 on the seller side, $3,000 on the buyer side. And you can offer to pay that 1% or as much as you like of the seller's transfer tax. And the reason that this is interesting to them, even though it's a smaller amount within the scenario, is that it's a guaranteed amount. So there's other things in the contract that you might not have to pay, but you can elect to pay, assuming things happen a certain way. But in transfer tax, it's a guaranteed thing that's going to happen. So you can offer to take $3,000 off the seller's bill, assuming that you want the contract bad enough. And finally, this one's probably the most controversial one, but appraisal gap payments. Now this is something that makes a lot of people very, very upset, and has happened a lot in the last 2 or 3 years in a lot of contracts that I've seen in the market here in Harrisburg. And what appraisal gaps are is basically, imagine the property appraises for $300,000, but your initial contract was $310,000 or something like that. You can offer, hey, Mr. Seller, I will pay that $10,000 difference if you select my offer because I want the house bad enough, and I will pay the difference in the appraised value. Now, people are saying, well, aren't you literally just overpaying for a house that's worth $300,000? And you are. That's what's happening. You are paying a difference, but that's because you want the house bad enough. So this is only something that I would suggest doing if you really, really love the house, you're not going to get the contract any other way, and you want to stay there long term so that you'll come out ahead of this anyway. If you think about it like a stock game, you put $310,000 in now, but this will be worth $400,000 in 10 years. So you're not going to be worried about all that in the long term if you stick with this property and you want the property bad enough. And one more that is really underrated and people don't think about enough is settlement date. Sometimes when sellers get offers, they'll think that you're kind of locked into that settlement date. But one thing I always say is I ask my buyers, hey, are you guys interested in being flexible with the seller, assuming that they want to do any specific settlement date? Because sometimes sellers need to stay in that house for 3 months. Sometimes they need to stay in it for 5 months, and there's a really specific reason why. Maybe they're moving a job, in the summer, but it's February or March or whatever, and they need to stay in the house for that amount of time. So if you write on your offer like, hey, I want to close in 30 days, thinking that that's beneficial to the seller, sometimes it's not. Sometimes they need to stay a little bit longer. So settlement date is something that, again, a really good realtor is going to find out where the seller's motivation is for that settlement date. And finally, guys, I cannot stress this enough, and I love working with these guys. Work with a local lender. sellers find out from their agent, hey, is this lender legitimate? Is this a good lender? Is Rocket Mortgage a good lender? Is Lower.com a good lender? Should I be accepting a contract from these guys? And a lot of the time, the seller's agent, they know this area. They work in this area. You know, they're around Harrisburg. They know who's reputable. They know who's a good lender to work with. They know that local lenders are available and these online guys are not. And getting pre-approved from a local lender in the area, like Ethan and Noah here, is a really, really good idea. They're going to be on top of your contracts a lot more than, you know, someone in LA trying to write an offer for you in Harrisburg, because that kind of stuff has a million problems built in. I can't tell you how many times deals have been messed up by faulty lenders or lenders who don't know what they're doing, or out-of-market lenders who don't really care what's going on and they're getting paid a salary, whatever. A lot of these lenders are not great. So work with a local lender to get your deal done.
That is our favorite one. Zach, that is our favorite one. So there really is some nuances, some differences. You know, Noah and I have both done deals out of state, but we really had to put extra work into it.
Yeah.
Understand transfer taxes, all that type of stuff. A lot of times the online lenders are gonna be 9 to 5, and that is their time, by the way.
Right.
Whereas Noah and I are gonna answer your calls and your texts early. We're gonna answer your calls and your texts late. We, you know, understand that our reputation is at stake and we want to come through for you guys. So working with a local lender, specifically and hopefully Noah or I, is something that's very important. And I think a lot of people in this market understand that and think that is also true.
All right, guys, we just want to take some time to thank you guys for watching. Definitely thank our man Zach here for coming in, giving us some pointers and helping us out with the video today. Definitely like our videos, subscribe to all the channels. We'll post them in our posts as well. So look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thanks.
See you guys.